let's talk about the universe again. So, I can't say that I have a thesis necessarily or hypothesis so much, but I think that it would be good to present certain foundations or points of view or realities that maybe have a higher potential than others of being relevant and realistic for some of the arguments that I might like to make. So, I would like to comment on morality. I think morality is a crock of shit. It's a lie that we like to tell ourselves to satisfy our egos. An ego, which is a more complex ball of shit, is the cause of so much of the conflict and suffering and complete and utter bullshit in the world and in our own lives. We are our worst enemies. So, well, you might say, well, morality is real. I'm moral. I'm a good person. And that's exactly why morality is bullshit. Do you really think that, let's take for example, people that threw planes into the World Trade Center in 9/11. If you put them up to a lie detector test, I'm quite confident that they would pass if you asked them questions like, was what you did good? Was what you did right? Do you believe that God, Allah, wanted you to do that? I think they would probably fucking pass. And that's because in the perceptive constructions that they're experiencing, they are moral. Just like somebody who drops napalm on a village of women and children believes that what they're doing is for the greater good. It is moral. They are right. I mean, nobody inherently wants to believe that what they're doing makes them a piece of shit. I mean, that's pretty uncommon. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but over a sample of 7.5 plus billion humans, I don't think it's an identifiable percentage for the most part. Akira the Dawn has this track, I can't remember the name of it at this time, where he's sampling somebody talking, and they're saying like, the world is a history of good versus good. Everybody believes that what they're doing is the right thing to do. Otherwise, why would you do it? Nobody believes they're wrong. Like I believe it was Nietzsche talked about, I think it was the German schism, and how these two opposing factions were arguing over whether or not the Eucharist was and the wine, I think, was a symbol of Christ's body and blood, or whether or not once the priest blessed it, it became physically Christ's flesh and blood. And these motherfuckers went to war over this shit. Like, they started killing each other. Like, what the fuck? Does it matter that much? Be like, if you believe that, alright, you go believe that, brother. I don't think either of them believed they were wrong. I think they both believed that they were moral. So, if we don't have morality, if there is no good, no bad, right, wrong, positive, negative, good, evil, blah, 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 then what is there? Because much of the human reality is based upon comparative analysis. We see and feel and taste, touch, experience things, and we evaluate and label them through comparing them to other things that we or the people around us have experienced. Oh, do you like that band? Well, they're kind of like that band. Oh, do you like the taste of that? No, I've never tried it. Well, it's kind of like the taste of this. And that's the way we structure our communication. So, if we're not going to deconstruct the events around us in a context of right, wrong, morality, then what are they? Well, there's different opinions on that. The Buddhists would predominantly argue that it's just a cause and effect driven universe. There's stuff happening, and that's basically it. It's all just stuff. Just events. Phenomena is a word you would hear a lot in the Buddhist philosophers. It's all just phenomena. It's temporary, it comes in, and it goes, and it's done. How much expectation we derive from that, or how attached we get to that, is going to affect the suffering that we experience. So, I mean, personally, I think that's pretty rational. If everything is just stuff happening, you can look at things in a cause and effect scenario, right? So, it becomes, okay, well, what would I like to see happen? You then get to the next step in the equation and say, well, based upon the realistically available options in my situation, which choices can I make that are most likely to cause that to happen? And it's a much more solution-oriented way of looking at things. When you're not looking at things like, I'm right, you're wrong. Well, that's just divisive. If you, like Dale Carnegie, like that was part of the foundation of all of his shit, right? Was if you just go around telling people you're wrong, they're not going to want to agree with you. You are not going to win friends and influence people going around condescending them, right? I mean, his books have been in print for like 100 years. You got to sell religious books to compete with how many books that guy fucking sold. He's got to be onto something, right? So, a lot of the arguments that I would like to make would be based upon that the universe is just a sequence of things happening. That there isn't really right, there isn't really wrong. It's just things happening. And we're all, to some degree, experiencing the same things, but we have different desires and expectations and attachments in those situations, and then that increases the odds of suffering, and therefore increases the odds of conflict. And like, who comes ahead in conflict for the most part, really? And I don't mean conflict as in like fucking meth head got a knife to some broad's throat and he's demanding money for more meth. That's not the kind of conflict. I mean, you know what? Just do what you got to do with that guy. Like, if he won't put the knife down, then just get a sniper to shoot him in the head. Like, what are you gonna do? You know what I mean? What are you gonna do? Like, you gotta draw a line somewhere with some bullshit, right? When I talk about conflict, I'm talking about, and I'm not implying that we all have the same goal, because we don't. We can't all have the same goal because we're in different situations. But by looking at things through more of a cause and effect, things happening lens, I think it's a lot easier to have empathy and compassion for the things around you. And that is a tremendous tool for the reduction of suffering and conflict. Not even just in your own life, but in the greater space around you. You know, Abraham Lincoln had, I think it was Lincoln, said that it's best, I'm probably paraphrasing to some degree here, that it's best not to judge others, because quite often they're only what you would have become under similar circumstances. And I think he fucking hit it right on the nuts. You know what I mean? Like, it's easy to judge what somebody else did in a different situation when you haven't been in that fucking situation. You know what I mean? Like, without compassion and empathy, how could you realistically put yourself in that person's shoes? Like, I live in a pretty low crime, middle class area in Canada. As all the places you could live on this fucking rock, it's one of the better places. How can I realistically, you know, sit there and say what somebody else on some conflict, war, divided, piss poor fucking part of the planet do with their choices? I mean, I haven't been in those situations. I haven't been in the situations even fucking remotely as bad as that. You know, like, okay, sometimes the meth heads get a little crazy, or, you know what I mean, there's crackheads sleeping on the street or something maybe, but, like, I don't live in a place where there's, like, you know, conflict and strife and suffering, and, you know what I mean? Like, the shit really hits the fan, maybe I just cut back on my cell phone plan. I think I'm getting sidetracked here to a degree. So, back to the idea of morality. So, how do I, living in what is one of the best potential places to live on the planet, I'm gonna say that somebody else in a situation that I've never been in behaved necessarily immorally, right? And that's not to say that some of the things that some people do in the cause and effect lens doesn't dramatically have effects of more suffering and more conflict and more bullshit. But the basis of a lot of the things I would like to talk about does involve the idea that morality is something that predominantly is going to cause a lot more problems than it is going to contribute to more solutions. And I try to be solution oriented, and in a world where, whether or not we like it, we're all on the same planet, and if we don't learn to get along a little bit better, we're always going to be killing each other and allowing others to live in fucking squalor and bullshit, you know what I mean? Like, you're either contributing, or at least trying to, solutions, or you're predominantly contributing to the problems. So, in a cause and effect driven universe, I think that it is wise to try and contribute more to solutions than the problems. No one's perfect. No one's gonna hit that out of the park every time. I'm certainly have a predisposition for enjoying antagonizing people. I wish I didn't, and sometimes I struggle with that. But sometimes I just get some good satisfaction out of pissing somebody off. It's certainly something I have to continue to work on. That's who I am. So, that's my karma. Do you have karma? Of course you do. Everyone has karma. Everything is karma. But that's a different topic, I think. And fuck's that guy doing? You don't need a social distance from a parking ticket machine, dude. There's no one in front of you. What the fuck? Anyway, I'll leave it at that. And I'd like to please remind you to be a student of your own karma, always. Because everything that you've ever needed to know, you were probably already born knowing. You just got to get around to seeing it. Catch you in the next life.